So today, we're diving into a really critical medical mystery, and we're going to be guided by some absolutely groundbreaking research from Dr. Laszlo Tabar and his team. Their work tackles a question that is, frankly, long overdue. Why are we failing to cure so many cases of a very common breast cancer called invasive lobular carcinoma, or ILC? Let's get into it.
Here it is. This is the central question, the real head-scratcher that drives this whole story. For more than 3 decades, while we've seen incredible leaps in medicine for so many other diseases, the survival rate for women with this specific cancer has just flatlined. It's been tragically stuck in place. So, what on earth is going on?
In this graph, wow, it says it all, really. Just look at these two survival curves. The blue line, that represents patients from back in 1996 all the way to 2010. The red line, that's the more recent period, 2011 to 2022. They are practically right on top of each other. Decades of modern medicine, new therapies, and essentially no real progress in long-term survival. To understand why, we have to rewind the clock way back.
You know, for almost a century, our entire approach to this cancer, how we diagnose it, how we treat it, has been based on one single story. A theory about where this cancer comes from that was cooked up over 80 years ago.
Okay, so check out this timeline. This is where things get really wild. In 1941, 2 researchers, Foote and Stewart, they proposed that ILC starts in the epithelial cells of the breast's lobules. But then, just 5 years later, they came right out and admitted they didn't have the evidence to prove it. And yet somehow, by 1947, the theory was accepted as gospel truth, and it's been the foundation of our treatment strategy ever since.
And listen to how they described it in their own words. They said this mass eruption of tumor cells happened because of some lytic action, which was, and I quote, naturally not to be detected by anatomical study. I mean, they were basically saying, hey, something invisible happened that we can't possibly see or prove. It was a guess, a placeholder for a process they couldn't explain. And that guess became dogma. And right away, there was a huge problem with this theory, a really inconvenient fact. There's this key protein called E-cadherin, which is basically the molecular glue that holds epithelial cells together. But in ILC cells, it's just gone. The old theory has to do these mental gymnastics saying the protein is somehow lost. But what if it was never there to begin with?
And that question is where Dr. Tabar's work comes in, and it is a total game changer. He and his team are proposing something radical, that we've been looking in the completely wrong place all this time, and that this cancer starts from a totally different kind of cell.
Okay, so let's break this down. Old school versus new school. The old theory says the cancer comes from epithelial cells and somehow loses that E-cadherin glue. So logically, we treat it like other epithelial cancers. But the new theory says, no, it originates from mesenchymal stem cells, which never had E-cadherin in the first place. This changes absolutely everything. It means we need a completely different playbook.
And because it's such a different beast, the researchers say we have to call it something different. Breast cancer of mesangial origin, or BCMO. And look, this isn't just about changing a name. It's a critical alert, a big flashing warning sign to doctors that says, hey, what you're dealing with here is not a standard issue cancer. It's not going to play by the normal rules. And this new way of thinking finally helps solve a truly heartbreaking puzzle. Why our standard molecular tests, which are all designed for those epithelial cancers, often tell a patient, hey, your prognosis looks good, when in reality, their cancer is on a much, much deadlier path. Let's look at a devastating real-world example of this.
For the patient you see here, the molecular tests, all the standard stuff, predicted a good outcome. But look at the mammogram. The imaging biomarker, that spiderweb-like distortion you can see, that told the real story. It showed a large, aggressive cancer. Tragically, that patient died just 23 months later. The old model completely and utterly failed her, and the discovery doesn't even stop there.
As if that wasn't enough, Dr. Tabar's research uncovered another shocking truth. That one single name, invasive lobular carcinoma, has actually been hiding the fact that we're dealing with 2 completely different diseases. So, what we've all been calling classic ILC is actually 2 distinct things. First, there's extralobular BCMO. This one is really bad news. It's highly fatal, it starts outside the lobule, and it spreads out diffusely. Then there's intralobular BCMO, which is much less aggressive and forms these small contained tumors inside the lobule. And you can literally see the difference. On the left, that's the deadly extralobular BCMO. See how it looks like a spider's web just spreading out everywhere? Now look at the right. That's the less aggressive intralobular BCMO. It's a small, well-defined little tumor. They couldn't look more different, could they?
And that stark difference that you can see with your own eyes on a mammogram, well, it translates into a life or death difference when it comes to patient survival. It is truly staggering.
Here it is. Here is the proof plain as day. This survival graph separates the two BCMO types, and the result is just undeniable. That top blue line, that's survival for patients with the intralobular type. The bottom orange line, that's for the extralobular type. The gap between those two lines is absolutely massive.
Let's just put it in simple numbers. After 19 years, the survival rate for patients with the less aggressive intralobular BCMO is 84%. For the much more dangerous diffuse extralobular BCMO, it's only 56%. Think about that. We've been treating two diseases with wildly different outcomes as if they were the exact same thing. No wonder we haven't made progress.
So, what do we do with all this? This research isn't just academic. It's not just interesting. It points to a clear, actionable, and potentially life-saving path forward. The paper lays out 3 essential steps. First, we have to reclassify the disease. Stop calling it ILC and start using the correct term, BCMO, so we know what we're actually dealing with. Second, use the imaging we already have to tell the difference between the dangerous extralobular type and the less aggressive intralobular type. And third, and this is the big one, we need to develop brand new treatments that actually target the right cell, the mesenchymal stem cell. As Dr. Tabar and his colleagues conclude in their paper, and I'm quoting them directly, as long as these two unusual breast malignancies are both termed classic invasive lobular carcinoma, we are unlikely to achieve any real progress. The language we use, the framework we operate in, it dictates our ability to save lives. And this just leaves you with one final huge question. This whole story is about an 80-year-old mistake, a wrong turn in our understanding that has had real consequences. It forces you to wonder, how many other diseases are we out there fighting right now with completely the wrong map?